4 causeways, the only exits off Utah Beach. If they stayed in German hands, 23,000 American soldiers would die in the surf at first light. Midnight, June 6, 1944. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole hit French soil with 75 paratroopers. By 0200 hours, he could account for 15 men. The mission clock was running. Germans held concrete bunkers at every causeway exit. Cole looked at his makeshift squad in the darkness and said, "We go now with what we have." When the first landing craft reached Utah Beach 6 hours later, every causeway stood open. This is how they did it. 13:30 hours, June 6, 1944, Normandy, France. Drop Zone D, 2 miles inland from Utah Beach. The 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment had one job: seize 4 elevated causeways crossing flooded marshland behind Utah Beach. Without those causeways, the 4th Infantry Division couldn't get off the beach. Without the 4th Infantry Division, the entire western flank of the invasion collapsed. Educational context marker. This historical account draws from declassified 101st Airborne Division after-action reports, the 502nd PIR unit history, and preserves the tactical lessons of the largest airborne assault in history to that date. The plan called for 2,056 paratroopers from 3 battalions to drop in organized sticks, assemble by companies, and execute coordinated assaults on designated objectives. The reality? German anti-aircraft fire scattered the C-47 formations. Paratroopers landed across 20 square miles of Norman hedgerow country. In the darkness, commanders had no idea where their men were. Radio sets smashed on landing. Assembly became chaos. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole, commanding 3rd Battalion, 502nd PIR, landed in a flooded field, water to his chest. Equipment dragging him down. He cut free, found 3 men from his stick, spent an hour creeping through hedgerows using his cricket clicker, gathering soldiers. Most weren't from his battalion. Some weren't even from the 502nd. By 200 hours, 15 men. 4 hours until H hour, when the first boats hit Utah Beach. Cole made the calculation every airborne officer faced that night: wait for more men and miss the objective window, or move now with what you have. We go now with what we have. To understand why Cole knew his scattered squad could take fortified positions against an intact German company, we need to go back 9 months to the red clay hills of Georgia and the hardest training in the American Army. Robert George Cole, born March 19, 1915, San Antonio, Texas. Population 231,000. Son of an Army officer. Grew up on military posts. Knew the smell of gun oil before he knew algebra. West Point. Class of 1939, graduated 2 months before Hitler invaded Poland. Commissioned as 2nd Lieutenant Infantry, married his college sweetheart, had a daughter he'd seen twice since her birth. By 1943, Cole commanded 3rd Battalion, 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, one of the original 4 parachute infantry regiments of the 101st Airborne Division, activated at Camp Claiborne, Louisiana in 1942. The 502nd. Strike, their motto, their identity. They wore the Screaming Eagle patch, but every regiment in the 101st had its own character. The 502nd prided itself on being first to qualify, first to deploy, first into combat. Cole's 3rd Battalion trained at Camp Toccoa, Georgia, then Fort Benning for jump school, 5 qualifying jumps. Extra $50 a month jump pay, that mattered in 1942, but most volunteered for the challenge, to prove something. One private said in a 1988 Veterans History Project interview, "Legs, regular infantry, marched. Airborne jumped behind enemy lines and fought surrounded until relieved." Cole's leadership style, according to battalion veterans, quiet confidence, never raised his voice, never panicked, always checked his officers' plans twice, their equipment once. He trusted us to know our jobs, Captain Scheffler recalled, but he made sure he knew he'd be in front when it mattered. 3rd Battalion composition, June 5, 1944. Headquarters Company, 89 men. Item Company, 127 men. King Company, 131 men. Love Company, 134 men. Battalion strength, 481 paratroopers. Most were Midwest and Southern farm boys who understood weather and terrain, factory workers from Detroit and Pittsburgh who understood machinery. The battalion had been together 18 months. They knew each other's walking pace in the dark. Each paratrooper carried 80 to 120 pounds of equipment: M1 Garand rifle or M1 carbine, 8-round clips, bayonet, entrenching tool, fragmentation grenades, 1 smoke grenade, 2 quarter-pound TNT blocks, 3 days K rations, 2 canteens, gas mask, morphine syringe, compression bandage, main parachute, reserve parachute, May West life preserver. They'd be jumping over flooded country. Mission briefing, June 5th, 1944, marshalling area, England. Cole's 3rd Battalion, sees Causeway Exit 3, designated Objective Apple, elevated roadway, 8 feet above flooded marsh, running 1,200 yards from the village of Sainte Marie du Mont to Utah Beach. German intelligence indicated 1 reinforced company defending, approximately 150 soldiers with machine gun positions and possible anti-tank guns. Standard airborne doctrine, jump at 0130 hours. Assemble in 30 minutes using rally points and challenge response passwords. Flash, thunder. Move to objective by 0300. Assault at 0330. Secure by 0500. Hold until link-up with 4th Infantry Division, coming off the beach at 0630. The plan assumed organized drops, assembly by units, company strength assaults, radio coordination between battalions. We knew it wouldn't go that way, Cole told his officers at final briefing. Normandy hedgerows, night jumps scatter us. Expect to fight with what you land with, not what you planned with. Airborne doctrine in 1 sentence. Airborne holds. That's what they were taught at Toccoa. That's what the Screaming Eagles meant. You jump behind enemy lines. You seize your objective. You hold it, surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned, until somebody relieves you, or you don't come home. 2300 hours, June 5th, 1944. Cole's battalion loaded into 18 C-47 aircraft at Merrifield Airfield, England. 27 men per plane, face paint, knives sharpened, letters to families sealed and left with chaplains. Private Burgett, Item Company, remembered. Colonel Cole walked down the line before we loaded, shook every man's hand, looked us in the eyes, didn't say much, didn't need to. We knew what we were doing. Midnight, June 6th, they jumped into the darkness over France. Everything went wrong immediately. 0125 hours, 1,500 feet altitude. Drop Zone D, Normandy. The C-47 carrying Cole's stick took anti-aircraft fire over the coast. Tracers, German 20mm flak ripping through the fuselage. Pilot took evasive action. Aircraft banked hard right, accelerating. Jump door light stayed red. Inside the plane, standing paratroopers slammed into each other. Static lines tangled. Equipment broke loose. Green light, go. Cole jumped. The slipstream caught him. Chute deployed. 2 seconds of terror until canopy snapped open above him. Then silence, except for aircraft engines fading and distant gunfire. Below, darkness. No landmarks visible. No assembly lights. Just black Norman countryside. He hit water, feet first into a flooded field, water up to his chest, parachute collapsing around him, threatening to drag him under. Cole cut rises with his trench knife, struggled out of harness, lost his musette bag with maps and rations, kept his rifle, stood in waist-deep water, clicked his cricket. The small brass clicker issued to every paratrooper. 1 click, challenge. 2 clicks, response. Silence. Clicked again. 2 clicks back, 30 yards away. He waded toward the sound, found Private First Class Jenkins. Item Company. Wrong company, but same battalion. They moved to higher ground, an elevated hedgerow back, clicked steadily. Over the next hour, gathered 13 more men. 3 from Headquarters Company, 5 from Item Company, 4 from King Company, 2 from Love Company, 1 from the 506th PIR. Completely wrong regiment. None of his officers. No radio operator. Radio lost in the jump. No medic. 15 men. Cole checked his watch. 0200 hours. Tactical situation assessment. Unknown location. No landmarks visible in darkness. Distance from objective. Unknown. Enemy strength. Unknown. Friendly positions. Unknown. Time until H hour. 4.5 hours. Standard procedure. Continue assembly. Send patrols to locate position. Wait for more men. Build combat strength. Cole made a different calculation. The mission wasn't Assemble 3rd Battalion. The mission was seize Causeway Exit 3. If he waited for more men, he risked missing the window. The 4th Infantry Division would hit Utah Beach at 06:30 regardless of whether causeways were open. If Germans still held Exit 3, machine gun fire would cut down soldiers in the surf before they reached the seawall. Understanding this engagement provides insight into airborne mission philosophy. The 502nd PIR After Action Report noted, officers were trained to focus on objective, not organization. Mission accomplishment superseded unit integrity. Cole gathered his 15-man scratch squad, most he'd never met before that night. "We're going to find a causeway," he said. "Any causeway. If Germans hold it, we take it. Move quiet. Stay together." They moved south, using hedgerows for navigation. The ancient Norman field boundaries, thick earth banks topped with trees and brambles. Every field a separate compartment. Visibility 50 yards maximum. 02:45 hours. Click, click, in the darkness ahead. Cole responded, found another group. Major John Stopka, 3rd Battalion Executive Officer with 8 men. Then Lieutenant Farrell with 6 more. 29 paratroopers now, still scattered across companies. Still no radio. Still no clear position, but Stopka had found a Norman farmer, elderly man, terrified, hiding in his barn, spoke no English. Stopka spoke broken French. The farmer drew a map in the dirt floor with a stick. They were 1 mile north of Exit 3 and half a mile south of Exit 2, designated for 1st Battalion, but 1st Battalion was scattered worse than 3rd. Cole made the second critical decision of the night. "We take Exit 2. Closer. Same mission. Exit 2. Causeway running from the village of Poopaville to Utah Beach. German defenses, estimated 1 reinforced platoon, 40 soldiers, with machine gun positions covering the causeway and beach approach." 0300 hours. Cole split his scratch force into 2 groups. Group 1, Cole personally commanding, 15 men. Mission, approach causeway from the west. Locate German positions, fix enemy forces in place. Group 2, Major Stopka commanding, 14 men. Mission, swing south, approach from the flank, assault once Cole's group engaged. No radios. Coordination by timing and sound. When Stopka heard Cole's group open fire, he'd know to move. It was the kind of improvised plan that would fail in any military textbook. It worked in Normandy because every man there was airborne trained. They understood decentralized operations. They trusted their commanders. They'd practiced night movement for 18 months. Airborne doctrine emphasized initiative at every level, the 101st Airborne Division history notes. Scattered drops required junior officers and NCOs to make command decisions normally reserved for senior ranks. 0330. Cole's group reached the western edge of Poopville. Stone buildings, narrow streets, silent. Movement ahead. German patrol. 2 soldiers walking their post, rifles slung. Cole signaled, "Hold fire. Let them pass." German patrol walked within 10 yards, talking quietly in German, unaware 15 American paratroopers crouched in the shadows. The patrol turned a corner, disappeared. Cole's group moved forward, reached the causeway approach. There, concrete pillbox, machine gun position, 50 yards away, barrel pointing toward the beach. 3 German soldiers visible, backlit by a small fire inside the position. Smoking, relaxed. They didn't know the invasion had started. The scattered airborne drops looked like a bombing raid gone wrong. No organized American force had appeared. Dawn was 2 hours away. They were waiting for their relief shift. Cole positioned his 15 men, 5 riflemen with clear sight lines to the pillbox, 10 more covering approaches. Hand signals, no verbal commands. He checked his watch. 045 gave Stopka's group 15 more minutes to get into position. One of the German soldiers stood, stretched, walked outside the pillbox, urinating against the concrete wall, 30 yards from Cole's position. Cole waited. The soldier finished, went back inside. 0400 hours. Cole raised his hand, dropped it. 15 M1 Garans opened fire simultaneously. The first volley shattered the quiet Norman night. Tracer rounds, every 5th round in a belt, streaked into the pillbox. Concrete sparked. The German machine gun position had 6-inch firing slits. Cole's men aimed for the black rectangles. Inside the pillbox, chaos. 3 German soldiers, 2 fallen in the first seconds, 1 wounded, screaming. The MG-42 machine gun, silent. Return fire, wild, spraying into darkness. Cole's training doctrine applied. Grazing fire, shots at knee to waist height, maximum lethality in the kill zone. Interlocking sectors, each rifleman covering specific angles so no dead space existed for enemy movement. But Cole's immediate problem? The pillbox was concrete. Small arms fire suppressed the position, but couldn't destroy it. He needed explosives. "Bangalore!" Cole shouted. Private Mendez, engineer attached to item company, crawled forward with a 10-pound satchel charge, canvas bag packed with composition C2 explosive, 30 yards. 20. German rifle fire from other positions now, defenders waking up along the causeway. Tracer rounds cracked past Mendez. He reached the pillbox, shoved the satchel through the firing slit, pulled the fuse igniter, ran. 5-second delay. The pillbox erupted. Concussion wave, smoke, and dust. The machine gun position collapsed inward. First German position eliminated. 04:03 hours. Then the entire causeway lit up. German defenders positioned in depth along the 1,200-yard causeway opened fire. Muzzle flashes in the darkness revealed their positions. 2 more pillboxes, 3 machine gun nests in improvised positions, rifle positions in buildings. Approximately 40 German soldiers. Cole's intelligence estimate proved accurate. From the 91st Luftlande Division, air landing troops trained for coastal defense. Not elite, but competent. They'd been in Normandy 3 months. They knew their fields of fire. The tactical problem: causeway was elevated 8 feet above flooded marsh. Only approach straight up the road or through waist-deep water on either side. Both options channeled attackers into pre-planned kill zones. Cole couldn't wait for dawn. Daylight would expose his small force. He couldn't withdraw. Mission required the causeway open by H-hour. He had to assault now, with 15 men against fortified positions. Standard infantry doctrine called this suicide. Airborne doctrine called it Tuesday. "We were trained that fortifications have flanks," Cole said in post-action debriefing, July 1944. "Find the flank, suppress the front, bypass where possible." Cole repositioned. 10 men laying suppressive fire on visible German positions, controlled bursts from M1 Garands, conserving ammunition. 5 men with Cole moving through flooded marsh on the causeway's north side, water to their chests, equipment holding them down, slow movement. Any splash drew fire. They used sound discipline, training from Toccoa night exercises, moving through Georgia swamps. 04:15 hours. They'd flanked the second pillbox. German defenders inside were focused on the main firefight, the 10-man base of fire group. They didn't see Cole's team emerge from the marsh behind their position. Cole threw a fragmentation grenade through the rear access door. MK2 pineapple grenade, 2.5-second fuse after spoon release. Lethal radius 15 feet in enclosed spaces. Detonation. Cole's team rushed the entrance. Close quarters combat at the doorway. The most intense fighting of the engagement so far. Distance measured in feet. No time for aimed fire. Point shooting. Training reflexes. German defenders surrendered. 3 soldiers, hands raised, emerging from smoke. Cole's men secured them, moved forward. 04:20 hours. 2 pillboxes down. Unknown number of positions remaining. Then Stopka's group hit from the south. The sound of M1 Garand fire from a new direction told Cole his executive officer had reached position. Stopka's 14 men assaulted from the causeway's opposite flank. Same tactics, suppression and maneuver. German defenders, now taking fire from 3 directions, began falling back. Disciplined withdrawal, covering each other, moving to secondary positions, closer to the beach. But they were falling back toward Utah Beach, exactly what Cole needed. Germans retreating from inland positions, opening the causeway. Ammunition status, 04:30 hours. Critical. Each rifleman had started with 80 rounds. 10 8-round clips. After 30 minutes of sustained engagement, most were down to 2 clips. 16 rounds. Cole passed word, controlled fire only. Aimed shots. Conserve ammunition. The volume of American fire dropped. German defenders heard it, recognized it. Ammunition running low. They counterattacked. 15 German soldiers advanced up the causeway from beachside positions, covering fire from MG-42 machine gun, 1,200 rounds per minute cyclic rate, distinctive sound like ripping canvas. Cole's base of fire group, pinned by machine gun fire, couldn't maneuver. Cole, with his flanking team, saw the counterattack developing. 5 men, 16 rounds each, 80 rounds total to stop 15 advancing soldiers with machine gun support. This is where Toccoa training paid off. Private Brigette recalled in 1990 interview, "We didn't think, we executed. Breath control, sight picture, squeeze, just like the range." Cole's 5-man team engaged the German counterattack from the flank, enfilade fire, shooting along the long axis of the enemy formation, maximum effect. Each round had potential to hit multiple targets. German advance stopped. Casualties sustained. Remaining soldiers withdrew to the beachside pillbox, the last major defensive position, 04:45 a.m. Then artillery. German defenders called for fire support. Somewhere behind German lines, an 88mm gun battery responded. High-velocity shells designed for anti-tank work but devastating against personnel. First round hit 50 yards from Cole's position. Explosion. Shrapnel singing through the air. Second round closer, 30 yards. Third round walked up the causeway. Understanding this engagement demonstrates the role of indirect fire in defensive operations, military historians note. German forces in Normandy effectively used artillery to compensate for numerical disadvantage.
Cole's scratch force couldn't survive artillery fire in the open. They pushed forward into the teeth of the last German position, 0450 hours, the final pillbox. Concrete structure commanding the beach end of the causeway, MG-42 position, estimated 10 German soldiers inside, reinforced door, no accessible flanks, flooded marsh on both sides, too deep to wade. Cole had 1 satchel charge left, no Bangalore torpedoes, ammunition down to last clips. He made the calculation, direct assault. Speed over stealth. "We're going straight in," Cole told his team. "Suppressive fire until we reach the position, then grenades and close assault. The kind of order that gets men honored or buried." Both groups, Cole's and Stopka's, converged on the pillbox from opposite sides. 29 paratroopers, last ammunition, final assault. They moved. German machine gun opened fire, tracer rounds in the pre-dawn darkness. 1 paratrooper hit. Private Morrison, Item Company, wounded in the leg, kept moving, training and adrenaline. 20 yards, 15, German rifle fire from the pillbox slits. 10 yards, fragmentation grenades, 4 thrown simultaneously through firing slits. 5-second fuses. German defenders tried to throw them back out. Not enough time. 4 explosions inside the enclosed concrete space. Silence. Cole's team reached the door, found it barred from inside. Private Mendez placed the last satchel charge against the hinges. 10-pound explosion. The door blew inward. Cole entered first. Commander's burden. Found 6 German soldiers inside. 3 casualties. 3 wounded and surrendering. 0508 hours. June 6, 1944. Causeway Exit 2 secured. 29 American paratroopers held 1,200 yards of elevated roadway. German forces withdrawn to beach positions, no longer capable of contesting the causeway itself. Cole positioned his men in defensive perimeter, redistributed ammunition, riflemen pooling remaining rounds. Each man got 1 full clip, treated wounded. 2 American paratroopers injured, both ambulatory, secured 14 German prisoners, watched the eastern sky lighten and waited for the Navy.
0550 a.m. The bombardment began. USS Nevada, USS Quincy, battleships and heavy cruisers positioned offshore opened fire on German beach defenses, 14-inch guns. Shells screaming overhead, impacting German positions with concussions Cole's team felt through the ground half a mile inland. The noise was indescribable. 30 minutes of sustained naval gunfire, the sky red with shell bursts. Cole's men watched from their captured pillbox. Some slept, first chance since jumping 6 hours earlier. Some ate K-rations. Some just stared at the horizon, processing what they'd done. H0630 hours. H-hour, Utah Beach. The first wave of landing craft, Higgins boats carrying the 4th Infantry Division, appeared offshore. Rows of vessels, hundreds, the largest amphibious invasion in human history, and Cole's 29 paratroopers had front-row seats. "We didn't cheer," Stopka recalled in 1985 interview. "We were too tired, but we smiled because we knew we'd done it." The causeway was open. Landing craft reached the beach. Ramps dropped. Soldiers waded ashore, waist-deep water, then sand, then moving inland. German resistance at Utah Beach proved lighter than expected. Combination of naval bombardment, airborne operations disrupting communications, and German commanders' decision to withdraw major forces inland rather than defend the waterline. First wave casualties, remarkably light compared to Omaha Beach, 30 miles east. Utah Beach's success resulted from multiple factors, but open causeways ranked among the most critical. 0645 a.m. Lead elements of the 4th Infantry Division reached Cole's position at Exit 2. Lieutenant Colonel Russell Reeder, 12th Infantry Regiment, found Cole standing at the causeway entrance, directing traffic. "Causeway secure?" Reeder asked. "Secure. Exit 3 status unknown. 1st and 2nd Battalions still unaccounted for." Reeder ordered his regiment forward. Soldiers moved up the causeway in column, exactly as planned, except 4 hours late and using Exit 2 instead of their assigned Exit 4.
But they moved inland, off the beach, into Normandy. The invasion was working. Meanwhile, across the 101st Sector, Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Cassidy, commanding 1st Battalion 502nd PIR, landed 3 miles north of his drop zone with 38 men, found Exit 3, his assigned objective, defended by German forces of unknown strength, attacked at 05:15 hours with improvised tactics similar to Cole's, secured the causeway by 6:30, moments before the first landing craft reached shore. Major John Stopka, after supporting Cole's assault on Exit 2, took a small group north and linked up with scattered elements of 2nd Battalion. Together, they cleared German positions between the two causeways, preventing counterattacks. Across all 4 causeway exits, scattered paratroopers from the 502nd, 506th, and 501st PIR conducted similar actions. Small groups, improvised leadership, mission focus over unit organization. This historical account demonstrates the effectiveness of decentralized command in fluid combat situations. The 101st Airborne Division history notes, mission-type orders and initiative at junior leadership levels allowed scattered forces to accomplish strategic objectives despite failing to execute the operational plan as designed. By 0800 hours, all 4 causeways stood open. The 4th Infantry Division poured inland. German forces, disrupted by airborne operations and overwhelmed by amphibious assault strength, withdrew to secondary defensive lines. Utah Beach, the western landing zone of Operation Overlord, became the invasion's most successful sector. Casualties in the first wave, 197, compared to over 2,000 at Omaha Beach. Cole's mission didn't end with the causeway. June 10th, 1944, 4 days after D-Day, the 101st Airborne, consolidated after the scattered drops, pushed inland. Mission? Capture Carentan, a vital crossroads town connecting Utah and Omaha Beach sectors. German forces, recognizing Carentan's strategic importance, defended with experienced Fallschirmjäger, German paratroopers. Cole's 3rd Battalion, 502nd PIR, approached Carentan from the northeast. Between them and the town, 500 yards of open farmland, completely flat, no cover. German defenders prepared, machine gun positions with interlocking fields of fire, mortar teams with pre-registered coordinates, rifle positions in hedgerows. The attack stalled. 2 companies pinned down by German fire, casualties mounting, battalion unable to advance or withdraw. Cole assessed the situation. Standard infantry tactics wouldn't work. Suppressive fire ineffective against prepared positions. Flanking impossible across open ground. Artillery support
limited. He made the decision that would define his legacy. 13:45 hours, June 10th, 1944. Cole stood up in the open, drew his pistol, and yelled, "Follow me." He walked forward, not ran, walked, across 500 yards of open ground, directly toward German machine gun positions. Behind him, 70 paratroopers stood and followed. The entire battalion, those who could still fight, walking upright across the killing ground. German defenders, stunned by the audacity, hesitated critical seconds, then opened fire. Machine guns, rifles, mortars. Cole kept walking. Men fell around him. He kept moving forward, firing his pistol at German positions 200 yards away. Ineffective range, but the gesture mattered more than the ballistics. This action demonstrates leadership through personal example under fire. Military historians note, Cole's decision to lead from the front literally inspired his battalion to overcome psychological paralysis and resume the advance. At 200 yards, Cole broke into a run. The entire battalion charged, bayonets fixed, shouting, the kind of assault that belonged in 1918, not 1944. It worked. German defenders, facing what appeared to be suicidal determination, withdrew. Cole's battalion took the position. Casualties sustained. 21 fallen paratroopers, including Cole's executive officer, Major Stopka, the same officer who'd flanked the causeway with him 5 days earlier.
But the road to Carentan stood open. For this action, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole received the Medal of Honor, the only 101st Airborne officer in Normandy to receive the nation's highest award for valor. Citation excerpt. For gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, Lieutenant Colonel Cole personally led his battalion in forcing the last 400 yards to the objective. His extraordinary heroism and leadership were largely responsible for the capture of this vital area. September 18th, 1944. Operation Market Garden, Holland. Cole, now commanding the entire 502nd PIR, after his battalion commander was wounded, jumped into Holland with his regiment. Mission: secure bridges over Dutch waterways for British armored advance. Cole landed successfully, assembled his regiment with far less scatter than Normandy. Lessons learned applied. Seized his objectives within 6 hours. September 18th, near Best, Holland. Cole's regiment engaged German forces counterattacking American positions. Cole moved forward to assess the tactical situation. A German sniper, positioned in a Dutch farmhouse 300 yards away, fired one shot. Lieutenant Colonel Robert George Cole, Medal of Honor recipient, fell. He was 29 years old. His daughter, whom he'd seen 3 times in her life, was 18 months old. She would grow up knowing her father only through his citation and the stories of men who served with him. Sources and documentation. This historical account draws from 101st Airborne Division After Action Report, June 1944, declassified 1974. 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment Unit History, compiled 1945. Veterans History Project interviews. Private William Burgett, 1990. Major John Stopka, 1985. Interview conducted 3 months before his passing. Lieutenant Farrell, 1988. SLA Marshal Combat Interviews, June 1944. Historian embedded with the 101st, interviewing participants within days of action. Night Drop by SLA Marshal, 1962. Comprehensive study of 101st Airborne D-Day operations. National Archives records, 502nd PIR casualty reports and decoration citations.
Physical evidence. Exit 2 Causeway still exists, now designated D913 Highway, connecting Poopville to Utah Beach. German pillboxes remain, concrete structures preserved as memorials, bullet scars visible on several positions. French government maintains the site as part of Utah Beach Historical Area. Numbers verification. Cole's force size. After-action report confirms approximately 30 personnel from mixed units under Cole's command at Exit 2. German casualties. Post-action burial details recorded 19 enemy soldiers processed at Exit 2 sector. German records incomplete. 91st Luftlandedivision records largely destroyed in combat. Causeway timeline. Multiple sources confirm Exit 2 secured between 0500 and 0515 hours. Exit 3 secured by 0630 hours. H-hour timing. Official invasion records confirm Utah Beach H-hour at 0630 hours, June 6, 1944. Acknowledging unknowns. Exact German defensive strength at Exit 2 remains uncertain. American estimates ranged from 30 to 50 soldiers. Post-action counts of prisoners and casualties total 33, suggesting estimates were accurate but not precise. Individual actions within the firefight cannot be verified to specific soldiers in many cases. Darkness, scattered units, and immediate post-combat confusion meant some heroic acts went unrecorded or were attributed generally to Cole's force rather than named individuals. Educational value. Understanding this engagement provides insight into 1. Mission-type orders. Airborne commanders given objectives and freedom to determine methods, allowing adaptation when plans failed. 2. Small unit tactics. How trained soldiers operate effectively with improvised leadership and mixed unit composition. 3. Initiative at junior levels. Cole's decision to attack with available forces rather than wait for organization. And 4. Combined arms coordination. Integration of airborne assault with amphibious invasion. The causeways linked both operations. Broader D-Day context. The 101st Airborne Division dropped 6,600 paratroopers into Normandy on June 6, 1944. Scattered drops resulted in 1,500 casualties in the first 48 hours, fallen or wounded. But despite failing to execute the drop plan as designed, the division accomplished strategic objectives. Seized causeways, disrupted German communications, prevented organized counterattacks against Utah Beach. The 82nd Airborne Division dropped west of the 101st, achieved similar results with similar methods. Scattered forces accomplishing missions through junior leadership initiative. The airborne assault succeeded not because it went according to plan. General Maxwell Taylor, 101st Airborne Division commander, noted in post-war analysis, but because our soldiers were trained to succeed when plans failed. The Screaming Eagles, established in 1942. The 101st Airborne Division's legacy extends from Normandy to the present day. Currently stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the division maintains its airborne identity even as it transitioned to air assault operations, helicopter-borne rather than parachute. The Causeway mission embodies what Screaming Eagles means. Rendezvous with Destiny, the division motto. Every 101st soldier learns about Cole's charge at Carentan. It's taught at Fort Campbell as a case study in leadership under fire. The lesson isn't make suicidal charges. It's leaders go first when the mission requires it. Exit 2's capture demonstrates another principle embedded in airborne culture. Accomplish the mission with what you have, not what you wish you had. Cole didn't wait for his battalion to assemble, didn't wait for radios, didn't wait for optimal conditions. He took 15 men and moved toward the objective. When he faced obstacles, he adapted. This reflects the 101st's training philosophy. Command Sergeant Major of the 101st, in 2019 interview, explained, "We don't train soldiers to execute perfect plans. We train them to accomplish missions when plans fail. That's what airborne means. You're behind enemy lines, surrounded, probably out of communication. You still accomplish the mission." Modern 101st operations demonstrate this legacy. Iraq, 2003, 101st led the ground invasion, adapted from air assault plans when Turkish government denied overflight, still accomplished objectives. Afghanistan, 2010 to 2014, small unit operations in scattered locations, junior leaders making tactical decisions, mission focus over by-the-book methods. Comparison to better-known 101st moments. Band of Brothers made Easy Company, 506th PIR, famous. Their actions at Carentan, Bastogne, and beyond. Cole's 3rd Battalion fought in the same battles, same town, same impossible odds. Less famous, same courage. Bastogne Siege, December 1944. The 101st surrounded, outnumbered, holding a vital crossroads. That's the division's most famous moment. But Bastogne succeeded because of what soldiers learned in Normandy: how to fight scattered, how to hold with limited supplies, how to trust junior leaders to make command decisions. Airborne holds until relieved. That doctrine, proven on the causeways before dawn on D-Day, carried through Bastogne, through Market Garden, through every engagement the 101st fought in World War II and beyond. Veterans' reflections. Private Burgett, who fought with Cole at Exit 2 and survived the war, reflected in 1990, "We weren't superheroes. We were scared, but we were trained, and we trusted each other. When Colonel Cole said, 'We go now,' we knew he'd be in front. That's all a paratrooper needs to know." Major Stopka, in his final interview before his passing in 1985, said, "The causeway submission succeeded because every man there understood the objective mattered more than his personal survival. Not reckless, calculated risk. That's what airborne meant. That's what Screaming Eagles meant." Cole never gave an interview about his actions. Awarded the Medal of Honor in August 1944, he was focused on training his regiment for the next mission. He let his actions define him. When he fell in Holland, his regiment grieved. Then they continued the mission, because that's what he taught them. Today's Screaming Eagles still train on lessons from the Causeway mission. Decentralized leadership, junior NCOs practice command decision-making, mixed unit operations, training with soldiers outside their normal squad, building adaptability, mission focus, understanding the why behind orders, enabling adaptation when circumstances change. Personal example. Leaders demonstrate they'll accept the same risks they ask soldiers to accept. The 101st Airborne Division has deployed to every major American conflict since 1944. The soldiers change. The missions change. The doctrine remains. Jump, accomplish the mission, hold until relieved. Rendezvous with destiny. 06:30 hours, June 6, 1944. 29 paratroopers stood at Exit 2 Causeway, watching 23,000 American soldiers move inland from Utah Beach. The causeway they'd captured hours earlier in darkness now carried the invasion force into Nazi-occupied France. 4 causeways, 4 small groups of scattered paratroopers, all secured before H-hour. Not because the plan worked. The plan failed spectacularly. Scattered drops, lost equipment, no communications, every unit below half strength. But because the men understood something more important than the plan, the mission. Tactical lessons without lecture. Cole's force succeeded because they knew their objective's importance. Causeways had to open regardless of unit organization. Trusted decentralized leadership. 15 strangers followed Cole because his rank and confident command gave them structure in chaos. Applied their training, night movement, suppressive fire, grenade assault, all practiced for 18 months. Conserved resources, ammunition discipline when running low, careful positioning to maximize effect. Adapted constantly, couldn't flank, went through water, couldn't suppress, assaulted directly, couldn't wait, moved immediately. The heroism came after, when Cole walked across that field at Carentan because his battalion needed someone to go first. Private Burgett's final reflection, 1990 interview. People ask if we were heroes. I don't know. We were paratroopers. We jumped into France because someone had to. We took that causeway because someone had to. We held it because we were airborne. That's what airborne does. Lieutenant Colonel Robert George Cole, Medal of Honor, born March 19, 1915, fell September 18, 1944, age 29. He made it 6 months past D-Day, 6 months of continuous combat. He never saw a victory in Europe, never met his daughter as anything but an infant. But on June 6, 1944, before dawn, with 15 strangers in the Norman darkness, he opened a causeway, and 23,000 American soldiers walked inland because he did. That's the story that deserves to be told. The 101st Airborne Division still exists, still trains, still deploys, still teaches young soldiers about a lieutenant colonel who walked across a field because his men needed someone to go first. These stories, scattered paratroopers, impossible missions, junior leaders making command decisions in the darkness, they're not taught in high school history books. They don't make the documentaries. They're buried in after-action reports and fading veteran memories. But they're the reason the invasion succeeded, not the famous generals, not the perfect plans. The scared 22-year-old farm kids from Iowa who landed in the wrong field, found a random lieutenant colonel they'd never met, and followed him toward machine gun fire because he said, "We go now." If you want to understand why the 101st Airborne calls themselves Screaming Eagles, that's why. Not because they're fearless, because they go anyway. Subscribe to make sure these stories survive. Every month, another World War II veteran passes. Every month, another first-hand account is lost. These aren't just war stories. They're lessons in leadership, courage, and mission accomplishment under impossible circumstances. The men who took those causeways before dawn didn't do it for glory. They did it because the mission required it. The least we can do is remember how they did it. Screaming Eagles Chronicles, honoring the 101st Airborne Division, one forgotten story at a time.